All right, buckle up, everybody, because we are diving headfirst into the 2024 election ring. We're talking campaign promises, the shiny, exciting stuff, and today we're putting two very different visions side by side. Kamala Harris's A New Way Forward and, well, you know who else? Donald Trump's Agenda 47.
Right off the bat, you see Harris is all about the specifics, laying out her policy plans in detail. Like take affordability, everyone's worried about that these days. She gets into the nitty-gritty, targeted tax cuts for working families, tackling those housing costs head on, even taking on big pharma to lower healthcare costs.
Yeah.
No stone unturned, seemingly.
Ambitious for sure, but all that detail makes you wonder, can she actually pull it off?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
For example, she's aiming for 3 million. Yes, 3 million. New affordable housing units just in her first term.
3 million. She must be thinking big. But while Harris is all about the fine print, Trump's Agenda 47, it's a whole different ballgame, wouldn't you say? It's giving big, bold pronouncements.
Oh, absolutely.
And inflation, make America energy dominant, you know, those kind of headline-grabbing statements.
It's a real study in contrasts. Harris is giving you the detailed roadmap while Trump points you to the destination. But how we're getting there, well, that's a little more open to interpretation, you could say.
Yeah, like he's rallying the troops, painting this picture of a stronger, more powerful America. But you're right, the details, those matter. What does energy dominant even mean, practically speaking? More drilling. A huge investment in green energy. How does that trickle down to the average person's life?
Exactly. And this difference in their approach, the detailed policies versus these broad strokes, it speaks to something deeper, I think, about how they view the role of government itself. Harris, she seems to favor a more hands-on approach, right? The government actively tackling economic anxieties, social issues, being a real force for change. So more of a we're all in this together kind of vibe. You could say that, yeah. Her plan suggests a belief that government can be a powerful tool for good, for providing a safety net. Trump, though, he leans towards deregulation, empowering businesses with the government taking a backseat, letting the market sort things out.
The age-old debate. Big government versus small government, more intervention, less intervention. And it seems like this difference in how they view the role of government, well, it pops up in just about every issue, especially when you look at how they each approach this idea of freedom. A loaded word, if ever there was one, and both Harris and Trump, they use it a lot.
And how they use it speaks volumes about their differences. You'll notice Harris, she focuses on what you might call social freedoms, reproductive rights, LGBTQ equality, voting rights, ensuring everyone has equal access and protection under the law, regardless of who they are, what they believe.
And she doesn't shy away from calling out Trump's role in overturning Roe v. Wade, not one bit.
Not at all. She ties it directly into her message of protecting women's rights, bodily autonomy, making it very clear where she stands. Trump, on the other hand, he emphasizes what he calls constitutional freedoms, things like the right to bear arms, freedom of speech, freedom of religion.
He's doubling down on those Second Amendment rights, reassuring his base that gun ownership is secure under his watch. It's fascinating, though, isn't it? They both use this word freedom, but they're coming at it from such different angles.
It just goes to show how one word can hold completely different meanings for different people. And it gets at this really fundamental tension in American society, this balance between individual liberty and, well, the well-being of the collective.
It's like they're speaking to two different Americas, two different sets of values, even though they're using the same word, freedom. Makes you wonder, could this difference in how they're talking about freedom, could that actually be feeding into some of the division we see in the country today?
It's a question worth pondering, for sure. And this tension, this push and pull between what individuals want and what's good for everyone, it becomes even more obvious when we look at how they approach safety and justice. You know, that tug of war we were talking about. Individual freedom versus like what we owe to each other as a society. It's like it takes center stage when you look at how these two are approaching safety and justice. Same country, same problems on the surface, but their solutions are worlds apart.
It's wild. Harris is all about tackling things like gun control, the opioid crisis, even holding, the powerful accountable for wrongdoing. She's going for systemic change, right?
Definitely picking up on that. Like her stance on gun violence, it's not just about punishing people after the fact. It's about addressing what she sees as the root causes inequality, lack of opportunity, trying to shift the whole conversation.
Right. You can't just arrest your way out of complex social problems.
Exactly.
But then you've got Trump's Agenda 47, and well, it feels a lot more like that classic law and order message we've heard before.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Big on securing the border, cracking down on crime. He even uses the phrase, get this, ending the weaponization of government. He's
Okay.
painting a picture.
Strong words.
Definitely, like the government itself is a threat to the people it's supposed to be serving. It fits with his whole thing, fighting back against what he sees as this massive controlling system.
So taking back the power, restoring order, security, all that. And when you look at something specific like gun control, the difference is huge. Harris wants to ban assault weapons outright, stricter control, while Trump's over here talking about a nationwide Iron Dome missile defense system. It's a bit much, isn't it?
Talk about a contrast in scale.
Mm-hmm.
An Iron Dome over America, it's like, what problem are we even trying to solve here?
Exactly. It feels like those different reactions to gun violence, to safety in general, it comes from them seeing the problem itself in totally different ways.
100%. Harris, with her focus on these systemic issues, she sees crime, gun violence as symptoms of something deep: poverty, lack of opportunity, racism baked into the system. Her solutions are aimed at those root causes.
So it's about understanding the why, not just reacting to the what. Which brings us back to Trump. How does he see the root cause of these problems?
He doesn't really dig into those root causes the way that Harris does.
Interesting.
His focus is on enforcement, projecting strength, taking a hard line against what he sees as the threats could be criminals, immigrants, even his political opponents, anyone he deems a threat.
So it's like Harris is advocating for this more nuanced approach, addressing those systemic issues, while Trump's message is more about action, strength, security through force, that kind of thing.
That's it in a nutshell. It's a classic divide in how people view the role of government and how to solve these huge, complex problems. It really comes down to this. Do you emphasize individual responsibility, even punishment? Or do you acknowledge a sense of, collective responsibility? And try to get at the root of it all. It's a debate that never goes away.
It's true, especially with this election coming up. But we've been focused on the home front. What about the global stage? How do Harris and Trump see America's role in the world?
So when you look at foreign policy, one of the first things you notice is Harris really leans into her experience as vice president.
Yeah, she owns it.
Talking about all these interactions with world leaders, emphasizing alliances, diplomacy, that kind of thing.
She's been racking up those air miles for sure.
Exactly. She's been on the world stage, and it's like she's saying, I'm ready to jump right back in, no learning curve here. And she contrasts this, her more team-oriented approach with Trump's interactions with certain leaders, shall we say.
She's not a fan of those relationships, to put it mildly.
Not really, no. She sees it as undermining, democratic values, hurting America's image on the global stage.
It's a recurring theme with her, for sure.
Definitely. She sees those relationships as a liability, basically.
Yeah.
Whereas for her, true strength, it comes from those partnerships with other democracies around the world. And then you have Trump. And surprise, surprise, he takes a very different stance.
Well, America First has always been his thing, right?
Oh, yeah, it's central to his whole worldview, and it hasn't changed one bit. He still talks about, preventing World War III, which, let's face it, is a pretty big concern for everyone.
No one wants that.
Exactly. But he emphasizes achieving peace through strength, through dominance even. It's a very unilateral approach, America's interests come first, even if it means stepping on some toes along the way.
And he's not shy about calling out past administrations for what he sees as their failures on the global stage.
Oh, no, not at all.
Saying they weakened America's position, made deals that hurt American workers, that kind of thing.
It's a message that really resonates with some people. The ones who feel like America's lost its way, that it's been taken advantage of on the world stage, they see this need for like a resurgence of power, a return to putting America first no matter what.
So we're back to that fundamental clash. Those two schools of thought on foreign policy. You've got Harris advocating for collaboration, diplomacy, working within those existing global systems, building alliances, all that.
Right, strength in numbers, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And then you have Trump pushing for a more, assertive approach, maybe even confrontational at times.
That's a good way to put it.
Putting America's interests first, even if it ruffles some feathers, even if it means going it alone. Which brings up that big question, doesn't it? What should America's role be in the world today?
The million-dollar question, no doubt.
Leading through alliances, seeking cooperation, upholding those democratic values, or prioritizing its own interests above all else, even if it means shaking things up, acting unilaterally.
It's a tough one, and there's no easy answer. but it's something we all need to be thinking about because it'll have a huge impact down the line for all of us.
No doubt about that. As we've gone through these campaign promises, these two very different visions, it seems like every issue we've unpacked, whether it's the economy, social issues, America's place in the world, it all comes back to this fundamental choice, these two paths laid out before us.
It really does.
It's about the kind of country we want to be, not just who we want in the Oval Office.
It's about our values. Do we want a more inclusive society where we're all looking out for each other with those safety nets, that belief in collective action? Or are we all about individual freedom, self-reliance, even if it means accepting that some people will be left behind? It's a choice that'll impact every single American.
It really drives home the point that this election, it's not just about picking a president, it's about choosing a direction for the country.
Exactly. And we all need to be informed, to think critically about these issues. Don't just listen to the slogans, the sound bites. Dig deeper, look at those platforms and ask yourself, what truly aligns with my values, with the future I want to see?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Mm.
As we wrap up this deep dive comparing Harris's A New Way Forward with Trump's Agenda 47, we're left with this one final thought. What questions would you ask these candidates? What would help you understand how those promises might actually play out in the real world? That's something for all of us to consider. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everybody, and until next time, keep asking those tough questions.